and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another pair of rounds in the UKSimRacing community's Porsche Cup Season 6, as brought to you on the premier sim racing platform available only on PC, known as iRacing. And today, we take a look back at rounds 12 and 13 from circuit side in Japan at the infamous Suzuka Grand Prix circuit. Home as a Honda's test track, this circuit started off as a testing basis for the Japanese manufacturer, but has quickly evolved into perhaps one of the most dynamic motor racing circuits in the world, and perhaps most well known for the fact whenever it's featured towards the end of a championship calendar, it is not dry of drama when drivers take to the circuit. Indeed, you only have to look back to the annals of Formula 1 and a number of confrontations between the likes of Ayrton Senna and Alain Prost to see the drama unfold, but it has also been the place where champions have been crowned, including the likes of Damon Hill. But besides Formula 1, this circuit throughout its history has seen a multitude of international and domestic series take to its tarmac, and whether it be Formula 1 at Super GT or many others, today it's going to be Porsche Cups roaring on around here with their 510 horsepower making the sounds echo throughout and the Mio Prefecture, and who is going to come away with the all-important championship points for going into the season finale at Magny-Cours in a week's time. For of course, with these being the penultimate two rounds, it does mean now that our championships are on a threshold. They are finally balanced, whether it be in the drivers or the team's championships, and we could see a turn in momentum today that sets up the story for the season finale. But as we get ready to go racing, we welcome you all to this broadcast. This broadcast is live, and well, with regards to the format of the broadcast, it is post-round as well. What does that mean? Well, the racing action you're seeing on screen today is not live. It occurred as of earlier this week, back on Thursday, the 18th of May. We're bringing it to you as it were live on Saturday, the 20th of May, 2023. And that means that as your host and commentator, I do not know what happens with regards to the final practice session, which is currently unfolding on screen, nor the qualifying session that's about to occur, alternatively in our two races. And if you are tuning in right now, you do know the results. Of course, we do ask that you avoid giving away any potential spoilers for the guys and girls tuning in at home and tuning in via the official broadcast. Of course, it's being brought to you live via YouTube at the official UKSimRacing YouTube channel. And if you are tuning in today, why not subscribe to stay up to date with all our latest broadcasts and racing events that are televised. But as we make our way then into the penultimate pair of rounds, let's give you a quick reminder of the calendar thus far and what still lies in wait. And as we can see, we're now down to the very bottom after our second mid-season break, and after today it will be rounds 14 and 15 at the French circuit of Magny-Cours, or the Circuit de Nevers Magny-Cours as it's known in full, to bring the curtain down. But winding all the way back to the beginning, we started off in the United States of America at the Virginia International Raceway, or VIR as it's known in short, and there the tempo was set high and we saw battles of plenty up and down the field, and particularly in the silver class we saw the drama in the feature race where it looked as though nobody was going to be able to bring home the car to win the race, but eventually somebody did. Then in rounds 3 and 4 we continued our way over to Italy, making our way to the European continent for the Monza Grand Prix circuit, and while Monza Turn 1 did not scare any of our drivers, and we saw the tempo continue there in the pair of rounds on the 30th of March, and then in rounds 5 and 6 a week later we made our way to Belgium for the first of a Belgian double-header. We started off of course with everybody's second favourite Belgian circuit, Circuit Zolder, the home of DTM, and where it was also the home of Porsche Cup racing. It was absolutely frantic between the chicanes, and then a week later on the 13th of April we made our way to the venerable Spa-Francorchamps for rounds 7 and 8, and there was all about the batting under, breaking into La Source and the bus stop chicane, but also the rise of many a driver who found their championship campaigns wiltering after the first few rounds. We then had our first mid-season break before we returned on the 27th of April for the round 9 Le Mans special, where it was the extended feature race. And there being a single race, it was all on the line on a single run of the tarmac, but we got to see plenty of surprises in store, and perhaps the biggest surprise of course of all was in the gold class, where Alex Peregrina fell off the circuit and it all unfolded in a cataclysmic fashion. But he bounced back in rounds 10 and 11 at the Silverstone Grand Prix circuit, and in the United Kingdom we saw plenty of battle throughout the corners with its wide open surface giving generous room for 2 to 3 wide action throughout the entirety of each and every lap. But again, there was plenty of drama in both classes, and then we made our way into our second mid-season break. We returned today for rounds 12 and 13 at the Suzuka Grand Prix circuit, and let's give you a recap of the championship standings going into today after 11 rounds of racing action. We can see that in the gold standings, firstly for the Drivers' Championship, Philipp Hammer leads after 11 of 15 rounds. It's 158 points for the Team Germany driver, 20 clear Haroldas Jotautas from Over Limit Racing. The theme here now is that Hammer's found his momentum, he's found his form, and whilst it was missing at the start of the season, it looked as though it would be a title defence that wasn't going to materialise. It's now firmly in place and it has materialised in full action. Meanwhile, in P2, Haroldas Jotautas has proven to be Mr. Consistent throughout, and right now in P2 he may be able to take one step further further to close the gap to the championship leader, but 9 points behind Alex Peregrina, the hot rod from Avatar Racing, who proved to look to be the early favourite in the championship, now finds himself up against the wall with the fact he's in P3 and the results are not going his way. Can he turn it around today and potentially take it to the wire in a week's time? Cameron Willesee in P4 on 113 points. They're on pure sheer effort, and it has to be said the Willesee Racing drive going from strength to strength, with Hekon Gestad in P5 for Ignium Motorsport there, completing the run of the top 5 and has finding himself in a bit of a lost place. In the fact he's not quite close enough to change down the top 3 or indeed the top 4, but at the same time he's well clear of Ryan Walker in P6 with a Satellite Racing driver there on 64 points, and there's a similar situation in terms of no man's land. Quite a while for Hekon Gestad, but in return well clear of the Blackout Motorsport New Zealand driver Corey Lazarus, who's on 48 points in P7. Giles Phillips of Phillips GP, Emil Koopmans of Apex Listers, and Ricardo Jimenez complete your top 10 for Avatar Racing. And then we have Samuel Casebrow only a point off the top 10 for Blackout Motorsport New Zealand. The New Zealand outfit having a mixed set of results over the last few rounds, but have started to really find the form once again. And it's Chris Cole and P12 for DCSimRacing, ahead of Alexander Wilfert for Team Germany, with Lee Holmes for ATEC Racing Team Purple, Joe Newman for Empire Motorsport, and Rob Selby for Shell V-Power Race Team completing your standings. We then come to the silver class. And with regards to the silver class, it's a similar complexion at the top. Luke Andrews, the firm favourite over the last few rounds, has dropped key points over the last 2 rounds in particular. Silverstone was not overly kind to the FR20 Sim Racing Purple driver, and it means now he's only 9 points clear of Roxanne Marshall for 24-hour Bunty People. In return, it's 5 points to David Big Light for DC Sim Racing, but the big spotlight shiner as of last time out was Lewis Willesee for Tresla Motorsport. Now on 104 points, and he was the driver of the day with 50% of the vote last time out. It goes to show it's a 4-way battle for the championship crown. Andrews has the points in the bag, but the question is, can he find the momentum to take it on through and try to put things out of arm's reach going into the season finale? The pressure is on him, with Marshall also in tow, and Big Dyke and Willesee really the outsiders right now, looking to try and put their mark on this championship campaign. Meanwhile in P5, Jack Warden 95 points. He could be within a shout as well. He could influence the championship, with the Willesee Racing driver definitely showed some great performances over the last 6 rounds. But then we do have Alistair Hatch on 68 points, ATEC Tech Science lead driver there, leading the best of the rest chase, with Wayne Basson behind for FR20 Sim Racing. And then it is a sizable gap of what is over almost 40 points, 39 to be a bit more specific, to Sean Cranley's Washington HW Racing. The P8 driver there finding some great form at Silverstone, and we look forward to that continuing, with Steve Hobbs at FR20 Sim Racing on 32 points in P9, only ahead of Aaron Tressler based on result countback. Behind the Tresla Motorsport driver in P11 best of the rest is Steve Kershaw for Night and Day Racing, who's only ahead of Clicks Racing Sean Dowie based on result countback, and Glenn Humberstone for ATEC Tech Racing Team Purple, ahead of his sign counterpart of Craig Schill, and Craig Tiddleston for FR20 Sim Racing complete your top 15. Liam Whittingham and P16 for Shell V-Power Race Team, ahead of Joe Pinder by 3 points for EDM Motorsport. And then we do have the 2 privateers of Jason Mumford and Jack Isherwood, with Chris Eddersford in P20 there for UKSimRacing on 4 points, and Tony Bradley last but not least the privateer P21 with 1 point to his name. But as we come for the Teams Championships then, well, not the Teams Championship, I should say the Drivers' Championship to the Teams Championship, getting ahead of myself. We can see here the complexion is similar at the top of the standings for the teams. It's Team Germany who lead the way by an advantage of 22 points over Avatar Racing. It looks as though at the moment it's a back and forth between the two. The gap has been closer, it's also been further apart. And Avatar Racing know they need to score big today if they want to make sure that Team Germany are being kept honest going into Magny Court. Meanwhile, Over Limit Racing not too far behind either, only a further what is there 7 points off, and they'll be continuing to try and find that momentum to assert Avatar Racing to be the second best, with Willesee Racing there in P4 at 125 points, and they're also in with a shout. We then have half the points to Blackout Motorsport New Zealand in P5 on 65 points, with what is a 9-point advantage over Satellite Racing, and there's Phillips GP, FR20 Sim Racing Purple, and DC Sim Racing, who are ahead of 24-hour Bunty People, complete your top 10. However, notice in P9 and P10, DC Sim Racing and 24-hour Bunty People are joint on points, and with a 2-point advantage over to Tresla Motorsport and FR20 Sim Racing, it's all open the battle for P9. Meanwhile, in P13, ATEC Tech Racing Team Sign on 11 points. They're 1 point clear of their sister team of Team Purple, and will look to try and keep it that way, with Night and Day Racing completing your top 15, only ahead of Click Racing based on result countback, and it's HW Racing, Empire Motorsport, Shell V-Power Race Team, and Ignium Motorsports who complete your top 20, with -3 points due to post-race penalties penalties for UKSimRacing in P21. But as we didn't come from our standings to our circuit for today, where it's none other than the Suzuka International Racing Course Grand Prix layout, as it's known in full, located near the city of Suzuka in the Mie Prefecture of Japan. This circuit needs no introduction, but we do have to give it one regardless as part of the broadcast. As we can see from the circuit map provided to us by iRacing.com, and thank you to them for their wonderful simulator and the circuit maps that come with it, this circuit consists of 4 unique sectors. As we said earlier, it was a circuit originally conceived as a test circuit for Honda to go along with their sweeter circuits, which also include in Japan Twin Ring Motegi. But the key thing about this circuit is it has 4 unique sectors which test a different component of driver and car ability all the way through. And as our drivers make their way around the 17 corners, they'll find the opening sector, which runs all the way from turn 1 up to the exit of turn number 6. It's all about medium speed direction change. For as they come down the start finish straight towards top speed, they'll trail brake their way through the kink of 1 and into the braking zone for turn number 2, a heavy braking zone there where it's all about settling down the car. Exiting turn 2 and it's the run through the S's of turns 3 through to 6, where the circuit gradually winds uphill, and it's a noticeable gradient change as they go from corner to corner and apex to apex. But also we see the average speed begins to lower from apex to apex, and therefore it's all about nailing those curves and making sure to keep the car tight to the apex curvature as they make their way on through. Exiting turn 6, they'll then make their way up through turn number 7 to go into sector 2, and then it's all about get back in on the throttle as soon as possible and carrying the speed into the next corner, and that's the theme all the way up to the exit of turn 9. As our drivers make their way through the long curve of turn 7, they'll find their way charging in towards the Degnas of Degna 1 at turn number 8 and Degna 2 at turn number 9, which is about braking retention. Will they make their way through the right-hander at turn 9 and under the pass out towards turn number 10. Now going into sector 3, our drivers will find that it's all about heavy braking and return to the full throttle as soon as possible. Going through the kink of 10 to set up the run into the turn 11 hairpin, also known as Kobayashi Corner, in honour of the Formula 1 driver who in a Grand Prix about a decade ago managed to achieve 5 overtakes there in a single race in a Formula 1 session, and that's why it's taken his name. And as they make their way out of turn number 11, they'll find their way blasting through turn number 12 and all the way towards Spoon Curve at turn 13. Broken up into 2 corners, 13A and 13B, it's a tricky left-hander initially where it's about trail braking to the apex, but rolling the car into the tighter apex of 13B and getting back on the power to power down the back straight and over the bridge. Now going into the final sector of the circuit, it's all about chicane manoeuvrability and also acceleration as our drivers make their way through turn number 14, known as 130R there, and high-speed controls will be a key factor and avoiding making their way onto the runoff area, alternatively the slippery curve. And as they make their way out of turn 14 into the heavy braking zone of Casio Triangle turns 15 and 16 and powering out through the curve of turn 17 to complete the lap and do it all over again. Which sounds like a mouthful, it definitely is, and with the lap time being just in excess of 2 minutes here, it is going to be a lap not to be forgotten by any driver who takes to the venerable circuit. But as we come to our rules for today, to give you a reminder, as always, qualifying wise, a lone qualifying format shall be used, where all of our drivers will have 8 minutes to set their best possible time, and it is not an overtime session, so therefore when the clock strikes 8 minutes, that's it, qualifying ends immediately, and if a driver is on a lap, well, that lap is aborted. Race wise, racing shall commence via a standing start, as is the tradition of the UKSimRacing Porsche Cup. The sprint race grid shall be set based on results of qualifying as a given, and the feature race grid shall be a partial reverse grid based on results of the sprint race with the top 8 positions inverted. What that means in layman's terms is the winner of the sprint race will start P8 on the grid for the feature, and we work our way down the finishing positions of the sprint for the 8th place finishers to start on pole for the feature, and then the 9th place finishers and downwards, well, that's exactly where they'll start on the grid for the feature race. There are no mandatory pit stops in either of the 2 races, and if we do see our drivers come into the pits, it's very likely for repair work, and one fast repair is available to each driver in each race. Alternatively, they've been naughty and picked up a drive-through penalty, and that'll be for 14 or more instant points. But that's enough rules, regulation, everything in between. I know what you're all here for. You're here for the racing, and as we head back to our circuit side pictures, let's take you through our schedule for today. Times in British summertime, that's BST, or Universal Coordinated Time +1 at UTC +1. And we can see in just over a minute's time, we're going into our qualifying session, 8 minutes in duration, and then we'll head straight to the grid for the round 12 sprint race, 12 minutes in duration at 8:10 this evening. After that, we'll take a brief breather of a couple of minutes, and just before 8:30, we'll be setting the grid for our 30-minute feature race, 2.5 times the duration, and it is going to be a test of tyre control and wear balance just as much as it will be outright pace in the feature, whereas the sprint is all about outright pace and car control from start to finish. But as our drivers get set to go, we do look to Philipp Hammer making his way on around there and through where's the Degnas, and as he gets himself set and ready to go. The thing about Philipp Hammer is, of course, he's in control of his potential destiny today. He can't win the championship unless an absolutely absurd set of results were to happen to both Jotautas and also to Peregrina and also to Willesey to an extent. But what he can do is put together 2 strong performances which will enable able to put the championship well in his reach. But as he makes his way there out of turn number 11 and through 12, well, the Team Germany driver will know it's all in the balance and he just needs to get it right. Meanwhile, looking to the silver class, we don't have too many drives out of the circuit at the moment, but we see Steve Kershaw making his way down the back straight up towards 130R and getting himself perfectly composed and set for the run on through the long left-hander. Now, you do have to excuse us, ladies and gentlemen, because we will need to step away for a brief moment as we transition into qualifying to make sure the qualifying results are not spoiled up front. So we'll be right back within a minute, if not sooner. And as we make our way into qualifying, we apologise for the brief step away there, but to explain, when we are doing post-round broadcasts and using iRacing replay files every so often, there is a technical glitch whereby when we transition over into that qualifying session, the timing tower that you see on the left-hand side of your screen can show all the final qualifying times, and of course we don't want to see those because they would spoil all the anticipation and therefore it would ruin the potential prospect to be as close as possible to the real live racing. But as we do see Haroldas Jotautas making its way there out of the pit lane and up towards what is the S's and through them, will get himself comfortably set here. And of course, for the gold driver, the over limit racing driver will know that it's all about continuing that pressure on both Hammer and also Peregrina and trying to stay one step ahead of them as he makes his way out of turn number 7. But as he flows on through it, the big question you may be asking at this point is, what does it take to do a good qualifying lap at Suzuka? Well, it all comes down to you as the driver and how you set up your chosen car. Of course, all the drivers running the Porsche Cup 992 machine with 6-cylinder 510 horsepower engine, and well, compared to the previous 991 machine, I've heard from many a driver down in the paddock, it's much easier to control, but still with the absence of ABS and also traction control, these beasts are quite a lot to handle, and it's all about feeling composed in the car. Around here, there's no one right way to set up a car for Suzuka, given the fact that the 4 sectors are very different from one another. What you gain by focusing on cornering speed in the first 2 sectors, you lose out on in terms of top end speed and acceleration in the latter half of the lap. Alternatively, if you decide to go for top end speed, you'll normally find that you end up struggling through the medium speed direction change of the sector 1 in particular, but you gain on the straights by comparison. So instead you need to go with what feels comfortable for you and give yourself the great opportunity. But of course, if I try to invest more in cornering capability, then they'll be looking to try and get their cars on pole position or as close as possible to it, because they're lacking top end speed down the straights, even in the slipstream, they may find themselves struggling to make overtakes. Now, Suzuka has been a circuit that's been a little bit controversial over the last few years, depending on the series racing in terms of the prospects of overtaking. It is a circuit that really requires you to run extremely close to the car in front to be able to find an overtake, but it does lead to a very daring approach of overtaking where you need to be bold and really assert your approach to trying to make those moves, and Sean Cranley's will be one of many looking to try and make moves in the race if he's not able to put it right up there on pole in the silver class. But as he makes his way up towards 130R, well, a couple of drivers almost set now to go onto their opening qualifying laps, including Ryan Walker, and we jump aboard him as he takes us around for the lap of the Suzuka circuit. He's making his way down towards turn number 1 here, flat out all the way in 6th gear into the braking zone, and here it's going to be about dropping a gear into the opening corner as he comes down to 5th, down to 4th, drops 2 gears, then straight line braking to turn 2, and finally find the apex curve there. It's a very late apex as he now powers out and makes his way out towards turn number 3. Now going for the S's, it's all about balancing the car for quarter score of 4th gear and staying in 4th, then dropping a 3rd on apex as he comes through 4, staying in 3rd as he goes through turn number 5, mounts the apex curve, and into turn number 6, keep the car nice and tight to the apex, don't let it creep away, it's an off-camber corner beyond apex, and as he comes out of turn 6, stays over to the right for turn 7, and gets back on full throttle there as he clears the apex curve, and now down towards the Degners. That's sector 1 done, powering his way up towards Degner 1 at turn number 8, getting ready to brake there at the 50 metre board and coming through in 4th gear, and now heavy on the brakes into Degner 2, all the way down to 3rd gear. Power use the runoff area there, but don't get too greedy with it, otherwise you'll be sent to the tyre barrier, and making his way up towards the turn 11 hairpin via the kink of 10 onto the brakes as he comes all the way down the gearbox to 1st gear, the tightest corner on the circuit, and then blast on the throttle and make your way up towards the spoon curve. Now as he comes through turn at number 12, keeping the car over to the right hand side and gradually letting it drift away, and of course trying to take the straightest possible approach through the corner to gain speed. Now making his way into spoon curve, using the escape road on the right hand side as the brake marker, trail braking down to 3rd gear and now into 13B. Here it's about going over the rise on the curve, 3rd gear all the way, and apparently use the runoff area on the right hand side and making his way up towards 130R. building up the speed here and getting the car gradually over to the right hand side now, making its way across the West Grand Prix circuit, the west layout of the circuit, the shorter layout with his grid as he comes into 130 yard, lift off the throttle, chuck the car in 5th gear, going through 130 and up towards where's the Casio Triangle chicane, breaking 120 metres from the corner apex of turn number 17 as he makes his way through the right hand, in fact turn 15 through to 17 he goes, and down the hill he drops the car, flat out here all the way to the timeline, and that is a lap of the Suzuka circuit. It's brought to you by Satellite Racing's Ryan Walker, and a smooth lap at that as he heads to the timeline, and that'll be good enough for P6 so far on a 2:03.947. But still, we have a bit more time, but with the limited amount of time available and the fact laps start at over 2 minutes and they don't go below that, it means that our drivers will only have a grand total of 2 qualifying laps available to them, given the fact the third lap they would have after their out lap, if they did 3 laps in succession, would go beyond the 8-minute limit for this session. So it does mean that for our drivers here, it's going to be pivotal in terms of getting that lap done early. And well, right now, Luke Andrews absolutely flying their P4 for the FR20 Sim Racing, a purple driver. And well, with that, if that currently stands as is, well, he's going to put himself well clear of the rest of his counterparts in the silver class. And this is the thing with Luke Andrews, he's got so much pace on a single lap compared to his peers, but it has been some inconsistencies in the last couple of rounds and also issues that have just seen him lose out compared to others. But of course, that's the way it goes sometimes. Luck's not always on your side, but otherwise it really has been a dream season thus far for the silver class driver. And I think with that pace in mind, if this can continue, he may find himself really giving himself the best possible opportunity to take that championship crown in a week's time in France. But meanwhile, Roxanne Marshall currently 2nd place in silver in P10 overall, and 1.6 seconds off of the overall pole lap, and a whole total of 7/10 off of Andrews' pole lap in the silver class. And I think for Marshall, it's all about focusing on just keeping those laps together for the simple reason she's demonstrated her credentials of being a championship contender, and not necessarily the fastest driver out there, but when it matters most, the consistency that Marshall has demonstrated has really proven true. And indeed, some of you may remember back to season 5 in the Porsche Cup when we were racing at Magny-Cours for the first time in the series history, and Marshall making it a double win in the silver class and just absolutely faultless. And that's what Marshall will be looking to bring to the table here. But meanwhile, going to our gold drivers, including what is Charles Phillips, as we see the Phillips GP driver crossing the timing line. We will not get another lap in, but he goes at P8 there on a 2:03.998 as Alex Peregrina takes provisional pole position on a 2:02.708. Now, is it enough for the Avatar Racing driver, given the fact we are still waiting for some times to come in, including Philipp Hammer, who makes his way to the timeline? What's this going to be from Hammer? It's P22. It's pole position for Philipp Hammer at 2:02.650. It's only half a tenth, if that, faster than Alex Peregrina, but the gap between the two is negligible, and it is hundredths, not tenths, that are the difference between them currently. But that is qualifying effectively complete, ladies and gentlemen. Marshall's backed out of her last lap. I believe there's been a track limit invalidation, and that's why she's making her way into the pit lane. Can anybody else improve here? Well, I don't think anybody else is on a lap, so therefore qualifying will essentially end a little bit early, albeit some drivers will stay out there and try to use the time just to get themselves more acquainted with the circuit, as we do see Emil Koopmans there losing the rear of the car. The apex misses driver making sure to hit his apex, but here's just the throttle application there, but he's missed his mark slightly as he makes his way up towards the turn 11 hairpin. 20 seconds left to go, and I think he's decided to call it there, understandably so. He doesn't want to wear those tyres anymore. They may have limited tyres down the paddock, although in reality they do have an extra number of tyres available. They've got plenty of tyres to go racing with, as we see Steve Kershaw making his way up through the kink and into 11 himself. But in terms of drivers who've not settled up, Joe Newman, Sean Dobie and Alistair Hatcher. But that's qualifying complete. We now head to the grid for our first race of the day. So as our drivers make their way onto the grid, this is how they'll line up for the round 12 sprint. Philipp Hammer takes pole position for Team Germany, ahead of Alex Peregrina, P2 for Avatar Racing. On the second row of the grid, it's Hekon Gustave for Ignium Motorsports, joined by Emil Koopmans for Apex Missers, with Ryan Walker for Satellite Racing starting off the third row, joined by Haroldas Jotautas for Over Limit Racing. Cameron Willesee starts off row number 4, P7 for Willesee Racing, joined by Avatar Racing's Ricardo Jimenez. And when the times are adjusted, Luke Andrews there for FR20 Sim Racing Purple takes silver pole position at P9. Started off the fifth row of the grid with Giles Phillips alongside in P10 for Phillips GP. Chris Cole starts best of the rest P11 for DC Sim Racing, joined by the silver driver Roxanne Marshall on the 6th row for 24-hour Punty People. And then behind them on row at number 7 is Steve Hobbs for FR20 Sim Racing, joined by Jack Ward for Willesee Racing. Alexander Wilfert starts P15 for Team Germany, joined by Steve Kershaw for Night and Day Racing, with Wayne Basson for FR20 Sim Racing starting on the 9th row, joined by Sean Cranny-Swash for HW Racing. Lewis Willesee for Tesla Motorsport Motorsport and Glenn Humberstone for iRacing Team Purple complete your top 20, with row 11 then following up with Craig Tillotson for FR20 Sim Racing and Aaron Tresler for Tresler Motorsport. Row 12 goes to the pair of Joe Newman for Empire Motorsport and Sean Dobie for Clicks Racing, neither one of them getting a lap on the board. And then last but not least, on the 13th row on his lonesome, iRacing Science, Alistair Hatcher starts P25 out of 25 entrants. But it is a packed field, ladies and gents, with 25 cars almost ready to go racing, and we are currently only 30 seconds away from lights out, and away we go for the round 12 sprint. A beautiful day today at Suzuka, splendid conditions and an absolutely packed out crowd, and what that effectively means is it is all green and go very shortly as our drivers get themselves set. And we look down to circuit side right now, and it is Philipp Hammer versus Alex Peregrina in the rain to turn number 1, and I hope not to have to quote the words of the great late Murray Walker to say it's already happened into turn 1 where they make contact, but we are 5 seconds away from going green flag racing. I think Alistair Hatcher's not going to make it to the grid, so it'll be 24 cars on the grid, and we'll wait the lights. And it's lights out, and away we go for the sprint race of the day as they make the way down towards turn number 1. Philipp Hammer nails the start. Peregrina tucks in immediately behind. Look, meanwhile, Hakan Gustad versus, what is that, Emil Koopmans and Ryan Walker. Walker having a very slow start by comparison, falling back multiple places, but as they make the way through the right hand, and now he tries to catch up going round the outside. Bold to try and do some cold tyres on the opening lap, but as they make the way into the S's, Jotautas there, clearing Walker, and Karen Willis, he tucks in. Meanwhile, further back, Steve Hobbs making some initial losses versus, what is that, Lewis Willisey, as Willisey on his inside. Going through turn number 4, into 5 they go, but of course this is the Serpentine switchback, and this is what catches drivers out. Contact between the two of them there as it's a bit of elbows out for Lewis Willisey, and Aaron Tresler taking the space as Hobbs is elbowed wide, but they make the way into turn number 7. Everybody surviving the opening sequence of corners as they make the way up towards the Degners for the first time of asking. Now powering the way on around at this point. Meanwhile, Glenn Humberstone not gaining but losing the place come the start of the race, and we're in that Alistair Hatcher has had to retire the car early, not able to go on the grid, but meanwhile Steve Hobbs running off the circuit there, and also another driver going off. I believe that may have been Joe Newman taking a detour going through Degner 1, so Joe Newman losing out for Empire Motorsport after a good start from the back of the grid. But meanwhile, looking to the front of the field, Philipp Hammer continuing to lead ahead of Alex Peregrina P2 as they make their way through turn number 12, and you'll notice how the gap is already starting to open up, with the top two breaking away from the rest of the field at 6/10. They make their way into Spoon Curve. Now coming on through and into the braking zone here, I suspect we're going to see a lot of drivers just bunch up and calm down for now for the run down the back straight as we jump on board with Lewis Willisey, the Tresler Motorsport driver, absolutely buoyant after his performance at Silverstone, of course, in the silver class, and as he makes his way out of turn number 13, trying to chase down at Sean Cranny Swash there, but not quite getting the run he so desired as they make the way up towards the next corner. And as they do, meanwhile, we look from him up towards Emil Koopmans, who right now has got the pressure behind him from Haroldas Jotautas, and Jotautas losing out at the start of the race in terms of versus Emil Koopmans, but as they all come through the braking zone here and on towards the end of the first lap, that's 1 lap down, still a few more to go, and we have got some more battling further down the field, including Sean Cranny Swash, and I believe Lewis Willisey there going a bit deep at Casio Triangle, and now having to give the places back. As they make the way onto lap number 2, it's Philipp Hammer who leads ahead of Alex Peregrina P2, Hakan Gustad P3 ahead of Emil Koopmans P4, behind them Haroldas Jotautas P5 ahead of Warren Walker P6, Karen Willisey P7, Ricardo Jimenez P8, Luke Andrews P9, as you can see there the FR20 Sim Racing Purple Machine continuing on its way, and then Chris Cole P10 ahead of what is Roxanne Marshall P11 best of the rest, and second place Silver. But as they start to course their way through the S's again, now it's all going to come down to who's got the early push versus who's perhaps struggling a little bit as they make the way on through the next sequence of the S, and as they can come on into the next braking zone, we can see there it's Lewis Willis who goes overly deep. He's going to lose places as he brings it back to the fold, but a difficult one there for Willis, and I think just being caught out that direction change. Meanwhile, Emil Koopmans versus Ryan Walker, and Walker trying to put the move on Koopmans here as they come on through Degner 2. It was Degner 1 we tried to make the move count initially, and Ryan Walker, I think, feeling really set up through turn number 7. Emil Koopmans, by comparison, struggling through the early corners, but I think where he's gaining is in the second half of the lap, where the speed of his car is really giving him advantage. As the Dutchman powers his way out to the Kobayashi hairpin, he's got to be careful here for the simple reason that as he carries the speed down towards Spoon Curve, Walker's right there and he's not too far away, and this could be an opportunity for Ryan Walker to look for a move as they head into the braking zone. But in the end, it doesn't pay off, and as we ride on board and look back from the rear of the Apex Mrs. 911 machine, Well, meanwhile, Walker, they're getting very close, so much so you can read the Marendis logo on the front of the car, and indeed, your eyes do not deceive you, that's how close they will get to one another as they make the way down the back straight and up towards the 130R, but as they power their way up through the gearbox here. Notice how Cooper's just able to outpace Walker despite the tow on offer to Walker, and that's where Cooper's has set the car up for. He's got it set for speed, he runs a bit wide there, got to be careful of track limits, of course every time he does that he will pick up a track limit validation. It's a lock up for Will Cooper as he takes the escape road, and as he makes his way in a rallycross fashion back onto circuit, we'll have to give the time back, and I imagine that Emil Koopmans right now is going to lose quite the plethora of places. But meanwhile, looking further back here, we've got two wide on the exit turn number 17, and this is Alexander Wilfert under pressure from Phillips as they make the way on down. And meanwhile, at the front of the picture, that's Chris Cole versus Roxanne Marshall. Marshall on the inside trying to squeeze away up into P10. On the inside she goes, as she does, Chris Cole goes wide and deep, and he loses the car into the gravel. But meanwhile, further back, Aaron Trester now starting to get involved here versus what is Ward and Wilfert in front as they power their way in towards the S's. Ward and Wilfert side by side going into turn number 3, but in the end it will be Jack Ward who holds the position for now. Alexander Wilfert there, but not quite able to bounce as they make the way on through, and he finds himself out of position as they come on through turn 6 in towards 7, and that's the problem when you're off race line for one of these corners. It compounds, it gets worse and worse every subsequent corner in the S's, and that's why you don't want to go side by side with another driver off the racing line. But as he makes his way out to turn number 7, he loses out to Aaron Trester. Sean Cranny Swash is going to be catching up soon as well, and will right now Alexander Wilfert definitely losing out time versus his silver peers. Aaron Trester under pressure from Sean Cranny Swash, so right now it is becoming a close battle for P4 in the silver class, with Chris Cole, the gold driver, also in behind. And as they make the way into turn 11 hairpin, still plenty to come here as we make our way towards the halfway point of the first race of the day. But further back, Steve Kershaw finds himself in a long line with Sean Dobie and Wayne Basson in front of him, and meanwhile behind we can see Steve Hobbs and Joe Newman, so it is going to get quite tender between these guys as they make the way on a round. I think Basson there missed the delivery on the car, it's not loaded correctly, we're not quite sure. What we can tell you is right now it's the stock livery and it's still looking shiny as they make the way up towards Spoon Curve, and onto the brakes they go. Sean Dobie here finding himself in a close position in the battle for P8 in the silver class, and while the Clicks Racing driver from Scotland's had some great performances in the last few rounds, and he's continuing that trend here today thus far, having gained 5 places overall at the start, 4 in class. He makes his way down the back straight as they all head up towards 130R. Again, this is where we get to see the difference in setups of the cars, and also the difference of approaches from drivers in terms of this fast left-hander, when some drivers don't have the confidence of others in the car, and therefore they find themselves right on the ragged edge. You can see there Steve Kershaw really taking a bit of an abuse of the track limits as they make the way in towards Casio Triangle, and Hobbs here getting closer and closer as Joe Newman coming on down. Meanwhile, at the front of the field we have had Philipp Hammer and Alex Peregrina going side by side, but meanwhile Sean Dobie here and what is, I believe, Kershaw coming out side by side, and return Hobbs is also getting close. Surely they're not going to try going 4 wide as they make the way down the straight. They're going to look at 4 wide into turn 1. Sean Dobie holds the middle ground, but look up the inside. There goes Hobbs. They squeeze. There's contact with Kershaw. Kershaw's off the road. They all come together, and Joe Newman avoids 3 stricken silver class Porsches, but Dobie survives it as well, albeit I think Joe Newman at this point is going to be saying, well, how do we think about that one, lads? And I think the Empire Motorsport driver is going to be relieved that he decides to back out, and that's his experience showing, whereas the silver driver is there 10 out of 10 for effort, but 3 wide into turn 1 does not go at Suzuka. But meanwhile, we've had a huge change at the front of the field. Whilst all this has been playing out, Hekon Gestad has taken the lead in this race with an instant involving what is Alex Peregrina and Philipp Hammer, both of them coming together at turn number 1. Now, we've missed that on camera. We will try and get a replay of it at some point, although we can't promise you that given the fact that, of course, this is an iRacing replay file. But right now, we have a new leader with Haroldas Jotautas at P2, and as they make the way through turn number 12, Ryan Walker there at P3, and well, at the end of the day, you have to be in the right place to capitalise on others' misfortune in motorsport, and right now, Jotautas and Gestad are definitely doing so, and Brian Walker could be on course for his first podium of the season, and it has been a long time coming if he earns it, for the simple reason that he has fought hard for podiums left, right and centre in races since the season opener at Virginia International Raceway, and he's always been denied by 1 or 2 places. And he does have Cameron Willisey still edging closer and closer as they make the way up towards turn number 13, but as they make the way through the left, turn number 40 I should say, get my numbers right, and as they come through the corner, meanwhile we look back to Philipp Hammer, and Hammer here trying to make the recovery drive now with Luke Andrews just in front of him, silver class leader, and I wonder here if Andrews might let this go, albeit the pressure is coming at Andrews, and the fact that Roxanne Marshall has brought the delta to Andrews down to a total total of what is only 1.3 seconds. Marshall is pushing hard right now. Those lap times continue to come in on that last lap. Roxanne Marshall took a whole 1.4 seconds out of Andrews. Now, we don't know whether he potentially had to lift off due to the incident up the road, but meanwhile, Giles Phillips takes a little bit of sneak peek there. Emil Koopmans, and Koopmans says, you can't pull that one on me, but Phillips says, yes, I can, as you've gone deep at turn number 2, side by side out, and as they make the way up towards turn number 3, well, Phillips will need to hold it around the outside to inside of 4, as they go for a bit of contact between the two of them, and Koopmans sent to the tyre barrier there, and for Emil Koopmans, I think he's going to be a bit frustrated now as he tries to rejoin, albeit he has to do so and try and keep the car off the racing line, but a difficult rejoin there for Koopmans, and the Apex Mrs. driver being sent astray, and I think that one might go to the stewards after the race, but as they make the way through turn 6 and up towards 7, meanwhile, we can see Chris Cole trying to capitalise on the situation by going round the outside of Koopmans, going a long way round for UKSimRacing, but as he powers his way up through the gearbox, it's going to be nip and tuck between the two of them as they make the way into the braking zone, and what they do through Degner 1, Cole there just finding the door shut firmly in his face, and Koopmans showing no regard in terms of that, of even worrying about giving him a bit of room and just being as though, well, you're on the inside line, you're not fully alongside, you're the one who needs to back out, and that's normally the unwritten rule at Degner 1 when you go racing here, is that if you're on the inside and you're not with a full overlap, then you back out before you reach the corner apex, because it only ends in tears. But as they make the way out of turn 11 and up towards turn 13, of course it's an unwritten driver's role, and meanwhile we look from them up towards what is the front of the field, and Heckel Gustav continue to lead this race by 3.2 seconds ahead of Haroldas Jotautas as they make the way in towards 130R once again. But meanwhile, Jotautas behind in P2. He's comfortably there with Ryan Walker 1.2 seconds back, but Walker now is starting to feel a bit more pressure growing on him with Alex Peregrina in P5, inching closer and closer as he makes his recovery drive. And as they roll the way through Casio Triangle, you can see the long sequence of drivers here. And interesting enough, right now, Ricardo Jimenez just behind his teammate as they make the way through 17 and on to the final lap. White flag out here with the time remaining, but meanwhile Peregrina in the slipstream versus Karen Willis. He's going to go for it on the inside. I think for the Avatar racing driver, he may get this all said and done as they break the way through 1 into 2. Willis is going to try and hold it there and set up the run towards turn number 3, but on that inside line it's looking as though it's more and more going the way of Peregrina, and he is ahead as they come in towards turn 3. The Avatar racing driver returns to P4, but can he go one step further and get himself on the podium? Meanwhile, behind them, Sean Cranley Swash goes a bit deep there at turn number 2, catches the car in time, but this is a P5 in the silver class that's on the line. Thankfully for him, he's got gold drivers behind him. He lets one go in the form of Koopmans. Meanwhile, Chris Cole is a lap down, so he decides not to fight this, but simply tucking behind the HW Racing driver. Aaron Tress has had a little bit of a wobble further up the road in P3 in the silver class, P12 overall, and Jack Ward just behind him at the moment. So still battles to be resolved before this race is said and done. But as our drivers make the way on around, we're also in that Lewis Willesey in the pit lane due to repair work on the car after an instant earlier on. But we look to Luke Andrews here as he makes his way up towards turn number 11, the silver class leader for FR20 Sim Racing Purple, locking up there, and well, the pressure building. Roxanne Marshall still a whole second behind, but lets Philipp Hammer go, and as they make the way now out to the hairpin and up towards Spoon Curve, will there be an opportunity for Marshall to come at Andrews, or will Andrews just stay one step ahead to the very end? That'll be the challenge here for Luke Andrews as they make the way on around and in towards Spoon Curve for the final time in this sprint race. Through the left they go and into the next left, but as they come on through and up towards what is there, the run on towards 130R, was Andrews that makes his way on down. We're into the braking zone, he'll go short, he'll ready the lift downshift zone, but meanwhile from them up towards the front of the field, Heckel Gustad's already clearing in towards Casio Triangle, so we do pan to the evening motorsports driver, and well, what is there to say other than when it does go his way, it's absolutely spectacular, and as he makes his way through the final corner, it's been a flawless drive, and Heckel Gustad will take the win in race 1 of the day here at Suzuka, ahead of Haroldas Jotautas P2. Ryan Walker holds on for a P3 and his first podium of the season, with Alex Peregrina P4, Karen Willesey P5, Ricardo Jimenez P6, Philipp Hammer P7, Luke Andrews manages to take the silver class win just ahead of Roxanne Marshall, P8, P9 for them respectively. Giles Phillips completes the top 10 ahead of Alexander Wilfert P11, Aaron Trester P12 round off the silver podium, and it's Jack Ward at P13 ahead of Emil Koopmans P14, Sean Cranley Swash P15 ahead of Wayne Basson P16, then Joe Noon P17, as Sean Doby P18, and as all drives continue to come to line, Glenn Humstone, Steve Kershaw there complete your top 20 ahead of Craig Tillotson, as Tillotson makes his way across the line there, P21, and then it will be Steve Hobbs who will be our final lead lap finisher, P22. We do have the retirement of Chris Cole, P23, and also the early retirement of Lewis Willesey, P24, and Alistair Hatchway gets a little bit of camera time here as he makes his way around. He joins late, he's 6 laps down effectively, but he will make it onto the grid for the second race of the day as the 88 Tech Racing Team Cyan driver makes his way through Spoon Curve. Great to see they've been able to get the car out on circuit, and will brilliant work there from the mechanics and Hatcher to bring the car on around, and I think with that he will technically be classified as a did not finish race, given he's not completed half the race distance, but at the same time we'll see him on the grid for the next race. Now normally we would see Hatcher make it to the line, but due to technical limitations, what we are going to do instead, ladies and gentlemen, is we are going to take a look at what exactly happened between Alex Peregrina and Philipp Hammer on lap number 4. And as we do get the replay here of the battling at the time, as they made their way down towards turn number 1, side by side into the corner, contact between them, and well, it looked as though in the end Peregrina was going to lose it, with Hammer holding around the outside, but a further bit of contact as Peregrina span on round, saw both drivers then end up off the circuit at turn number 2, and well, a bit of drama there in their championship rival. Of course, Philipp Hammer, if he loses out, to Haroldas Jotautas. Meanwhile, Alex Peregrina, the one who needs the points most, well, he's lost out critically, has Peregrina, and well, this could set up the tone for what is the final race of today. And well, with Philipp Hammer finishing a bit further down the order, he will find himself starting right towards the front of that top 8 inversion. But we will be right back, ladies and gentlemen, to take you through the results of race number 1 and build up to race number 2. We're back within less than 30 seconds. But as we do head into the mid-race break, the 2-minute interlude before going to our round 13 feature, these are the results for our first race of the day. And as we can see, Hekongestad confirmed winner in race number 1 by 3.5 seconds over Haroldas Jotautas, the Indian Motorsports driver, picking up where others lost out, and indeed a great drive there for the number 37. Jotautas P2, and the over-limit rated driver will know that that result will take him much closer to the top of the Gold Championship standings, and he needs to continue that form in the second race of the day, with Ryan Walker earning his first podium of the season, and he'll be absolutely pleased with that, given the satellite racing driver has been pushing hard all season for that result. Alex Peregrina P4 there for Avatar Racing. Not the way he wanted the race to go, but still finishing ahead of Philipp Hammer, and that will give him some confidence that the championship is coming his way, with Cameron Willesey P5 for Willesey Racing ahead of Ricardo Jimenez for Avatar Racing, and then Philipp Hammer P7 finish there, and the Team Germany driver will be starting on the front row of the grid for the second race, with Luke Andrews taking pole position with that P8 overall finish and silver win for the FR20 Sim Racing purple driver. Roxanne Marshall P9, silver class run-up for 24-hour Punty People, ahead of Giles Phillips P10 for Phillips GP, and then P11 Alexander Wilfert, best the rest of Team Germany, ahead of Aaron Tressler, Jack Ward, Emil Koopmans and Sean Cranny Swash to complete your top 15, but a special mention to Aaron Tressler P12 for being the third place finisher in the silver class, and then it was Wayne Basson P16 ahead of Joe Newman and Sean Doby, and as we continue our way down the finishing possessions, Glenn Humberstone and Steve Kershaw completed your top 20, with Craig Tillotson P21 ahead of Steve Hobbs P22, then finishing a lap down both Chris Cole and Lewis Willesey, 23rd and 24th respectively, and then Alistair Hatcher finishing technically 5 laps down come the end of the race, but we will see him start from the back of the grid for our second race of the day. But we are only now a few seconds away from going racing once again, ladies and gentlemen, and well, the warm-up session is complete going into the round 13 feature. Checker flag is about to come out, and there it is. It's time for us to go green light racing again, and how will it all go down in the round 13 30-minute race at Suzuka? As our drivers make their way onto the grid, this is how they'll line up for our second race of the day. In fact, this is not how they'll line up due to technical limitations. We can't see the grid for what is the feature race, so we do apologise for that. But what we will do instead is look to the grid as it's gradually being populated by our drivers. And well, as we can see them all gradually making their way into position here. And it is another absolutely beautiful day of racing at Suzuka. Indeed, the session may have moved on in terms of time, but those weather conditions have not moved on. And with most of the field now being set in place, we look back to circuit side as all our drivers get set. Luke Andrews takes the pole position, of course, and for the FR20 SimRacing purple driver, well, he's going to need nerves of steel as he makes his way down towards turn number 1 to keep Philipp Hammer, who starts alongside him, in check. And will Andrews try to push it hard, or will he just focus on taking home the silver class win, and knowing that with Roxanne Marshall starting P9, the pressure's not on? Well, here's the lights. It's lights out and away we go for the second race of the day as Luke Andrews gets a reasonable start, but Philipp Hammer actually launching out the blocks, and as they make their way down towards turn number 1 side by side there, Ricardo Jimenez coming on in versus Andrews, but Andrews going to hold the wide line as they make their way to turn number 2. Now see the avatar of racing drivers above Jimenez and also Peregrina trying to work the way around, but Peregrina going a bit deep there, and Walker's immediately going to try and come around the outside of Frey. Jotautas also going to the offensive with Heckelgestad on his inside as they concertina together through the right-hander of 4, but everyone makes it safely on through. Charles Phillips in the back of this, meanwhile trying to put one on Heckelgestad, but he's now on the outside of turn number 6, and as they all make the way through, everybody behind in single line formation, it's the gold drivers up front all getting very feisty early on, but they finally settle down as they make their way through turn number 7 and onwards towards the Degners. It's a long race this one, and tyre wear is going to be a critical one given the fact the tyres normally do go off after 20 minutes of racing when they push hard, and Suzuka is absolutely brutal on both sides of the car in terms of tyre wear. At the best of times they make their way through Degner 2 and underneath the bridge, and as they charge their way up towards what is the turn 11 hairpin. Meanwhile, a bit further back, Emil Kluten's having a little bit of wobble on exits, trying to keep Chris Cole behind as they all break their way on in, and very close to the back of Steve Kershaw. Meanwhile, Alexander Wilfert getting a good exit out of the hairpin. Jack Ward, by comparison, having a bit of a struggle, and as the Willesee Racing driver makes his way through turn number 12 and up towards 13. Well, right now he has got Joe Newman hunting close as the Empire Motorsport machine tries to make its way up another position. Making the way into the braking zone here, no way through for Joe Newman, has to wait his turn and simply have the pace to wait as they make the way through turn 13B and onwards towards the back straight. And up towards 130R shortly. Everybody will now start to settle into a little bit of rhythm. Tyres are starting to come up to temperature come the end of this lap. Brakes as well. And it'll be lap number 2 where we start to see a little bit more aggression from drivers who don't feel as confident on cold tyres, but definitely feel the confidence when the tyres are in the operating window. Further back, Craig Tillotson P at 25. Well, as we look to Tillotson here, he's had a difficult start to the race, losing multiple places, but now trying to go on the offensive for FR20 SimRacing behind Alistair Hatcher, who's gained 1 place off the start line versus Tillotson. But as they come towards lap number 2, we look from them up to the front of the field, and it is Philipp Hammer who leads ahead of Ricardo Jimenez P2, Luke Andrews P3, silver class leader, Alex Peregrina and Cameron Willesee P4, P5, side by side battling into turn 1. Willesee on the inside there, and Peregrina will not want to see another incident at turn 1 after race number 1 of the day, so I think they're having to play it a bit more conservatively compared to what he may wish to do. Ryan Walker in P6, and it's Haroldas Jotautas P7, followed by Heckelgestad P8, Giles Phillips P9, and Tressler P10, second place silver driver, and Roxanne Marshall best the rest, P3 silver, P11 overall, as they make their way through the S's for the second time of asking. Now as our drivers make their way up the hill and through turn number 7, where it seems to all be gradually calming down here in the gold class. We'll be, I think, at a moment's notice, it could explode back onto our screens, but further down we have seen some changes of position amongst what is our silver class drivers. Chris Cole has had to be towed to the pits after an incident. We're not quite sure what's happened to Chris Cole, but we do know there's repair work going down in the pit lane for the car, but as our drivers make the way on through and up towards the hairpin. Meanwhile, we look back to Roxanne Marshall, who's fallen in the way to a degree from Tressler, but has got Alexander Wilfert for close company. And Craig Tillotton's had a nasty off at turn at number 7, albeit we can't see that in the moment. But meanwhile, a bit of an incident there further back, as it looks like Alexander Wilfert getting it wrong, and Jack Ward in contact there with the Wayward Team Germany driver, and will Alexander Wilfert definitely get a bit of a bump about there after a mistake at the hairpin. We caught the tail end of it, and as he makes round down, you can see the grazing out on the front left side of the car. In fact, the whole left side of the car, which has been knocked in that contact with Ward as he makes his way into the braking zone here for Spoon Curve. Meanwhile, Lewis Willesee up the inside of Steve Kershaw. He gets the move done for P16, that's P6's silver class, and as they make their way through 13B, well, right now Lewis Willesee trying to get past past Wilfert and Joe chasing after the next silver drives of Sean Cranley Swash and Jack Wardle further up the road. And with the damage that Wilfert has got on the car, I wouldn't be surprised if Lewis Willesee will just naturally make this pass stick in the running to 130 yard, because right now he's got full top speed available to him. Meanwhile, Alexander Wilfert has got a handicap on his speed as they make the way into Gassio. Side by side here under braking, Wilfert defends into the triangle, and as they make the way through right into left, Kershaw's not going to back out this one. He wants to make headway. He wants to follow Willesee, and I think Wilfert may need to peel into the pits due to the damage. He does so as the drives make the way onto another lap, but as they power the way on around Sean Dobie looking for a move. And well, earlier on we did talk about the fact they tried to go 4 wide into turn 1 in race number 1 of the day. They're not doing it this time, it's 2 wide. Sean Dobie backs out there. I think recalling some of the horrors of that moment earlier on as they make the way through turn number 2, and as they come through the right-hander and up towards the S's they go, everything settles down between them. But from them back up to just inside the top 10, here is Aaron Tressler, and he's got the pressure of Roxanne Marshall behind as we ride on board and look back from the rear of the Tressler Motorsport 47. As they make the way uphill through the left-hander turn number 7, Marshall staying right there. 1.5 tenths to the delta as they exit the corner. It will stay about as they make the way into the Degners. Through Degner 1 they go, bouncing over the curve and now down to Degner 2. And Marshall here, I think, having to play the patience game. And Marshall taking the slow approach to the start of this race. They make the way out of Degner 2. And you'll notice there, looking for the inside of the Kingington 10. Very interesting way of going about this. You can overtake outside to inside and get the driver in front to go deep into the airpit. Tressler parks on apex. Marshall trying to make a move stick here. Can't quite find the final 5% at the moment. The key thing is that Marshall right now trying to push on and not wanting Aaron Tressler to gain headway in this battle for which potentially the championship lead come the end of tonight. Albeit Luke Andrews will continue to hold that, but it's the right to be P2 in the championship with all 4 drivers of Andrews, Bigodite, Tressler and Marshall right in the hunt. But as they make the way on through and down towards what is turn at number 13, well, right now Aaron Tressler keeping his head down and keeping it screwed on in its entirety as they power their way down the back straight. Meanwhile, further out the road, his P2 driver Ricardo Jimenez, he's got Luke Andrews accompanied further behind, only half a second between them. The Avatar Racing driver here, Jimenez, he's normally been overshadowed by his teammate of Alex Peregrina, but right now doing a very solid job in holding on to P2. Not quite able to stay with the pace of Philipp Hammer, who's just at the fastest lap of the race at 2:02.906. But the point being here is that Jimenez is in a good run of rhythm, and if he carries this on, could we see an Avatar Racing at double podium? Well, time will tell. We've got a long way in this journey to go as they make their way through turns 1 and 2 once again. But looking back to what is Hekel Gestad chasing after Ryan Walker. Well, things have entered a bit of a stalemate here for now, but I think a lot of our gold class drivers are currently in the tyre saving phase of their racing, whereby they're not looking to try and push too hard. All they're focusing on is protecting the tyres as they make the way on around. It's completely understandable for the simple reason it's not this moment where the battling's going to come. It'll be in the final 10 minutes where those drivers who push the tyres a bit too excessively will start to lose out. But meanwhile, speaking of pushing here, Glenn Humberstone's found a way past Steve Kershaw, the Night and Day Racing driver, losing out versus Humberstone as they make their way on through at the S's, albeit Kershaw trying to come back as they roll the way on through. And we jump aboard here with the Night and Day Racing machine of the 247. But you'll notice there that Humberstone are able to just park the car in the middle of the road and say, what are you going to do? I'm on the racing line and now you're going to have to follow my pace. And that's a challenge, of course, through the S's. You need to get alongside and you have to be very bold to make it happen as they come through Degner 1. Kershaw missing the apex curve slightly there, perhaps not feeling comfortable over curbs in the car. Missing the apex again there at Degner 2. And it's just the dirty air just washing the car out, causing some understeer, which could be the case. He tries to bring the car back together, but Kershaw's struggling when he's close to another car. And I think he might be running a lot of downforce in the machine, and that downforce is just not paying dividends right now when he's running within 4 to 3 tenths of the next car. As they make the way up towards the spoon curve at turn number 13. Meanwhile, Emil Coopers and Sean Cranley Swash having a bit of a battle up the road. We stay on board with Kershaw for now as he rolls his way on through and again. Dirty Ed just catching the car and Kershaw struggling. He is that air. You can see the car just does not want to turn on in. Instead, he's had to really fight, but he's going to have to brake earlier for these corners if he wants to get that car to rotate. But as they make the way down the back straight here, meanwhile we look from them to a little bit further up the road, and the pair of Sean Cranley Swash and Emil Koopmans, well, they've settled their differences, and the silver driver now behind the gold driver, but Sean Cranley Swash Swash wants to follow Koopmans on through to chase down Jack Ward in the battle for P4 in the silver class as Koopmans loses the rear of the car. Cranny Swash there almost taken to the grass for evasive action. He'll go around the outside, but something tells me that Koopmans is going to try and come back at him very shortly as they make their way down towards turn number 1, where it's going to be a drag race of the two Porsche drivers, and who is going to come out on top will be Cranny Swash this time, but Koopmans will be there to pounce in the near future if he can't push on through. But meanwhile, looking from them very shortly up to Aaron Tressler, P2 in the silver class, P10 overall, and here he is. He makes his way through turns 5 and 6. He's got Roxanne Marshall still right there with him, and as they make their way out to the right-hander and in towards turn number 7, will Marshall proving to be a bad rash in his bag, and the problem is it's a rash that's not going to go away as Tressler loses the car coming out to turn number 7. The car rolled sideways, and now Marshall takes P2 in class. Meanwhile, Jack Ward comes on through. Cranny Swash goes around the outside as well. So Aaron Tressler with an uncharacteristic incident, a mistake coming through turn number 7, and now for the Britain, for Tressler Motorsport, it's all unfolding from good to bad to worse in quick succession. But meanwhile, just in front of him, Emil Koopmans trying to come back at Sean Cranny Swash into the hairpin at turn number 11. Swash going to put himself on the inside. Meanwhile, Koopmans trying to inch it all the way around the outside little by little. It's going to be a drag race off the corner now. Koopmans is going to have the speed. We know that Koopmans has got the faster car compared to most on the straights. It's in the corners where it struggles, but he got it done there. All about power application on the exit of the hairpin, and the HW Racing driver Sean Cranny Swash just backing off now, and I think focusing on holding on to that P4 and potentially trying to follow Koopmans in the run after Wood and Marshall a bit further up the road. But meanwhile, speaking of up the road, we look to the two Aventado Racing teammates of Ricardo Jimenez, who's the lead driver of the two right now. That's Alex Peregrina. Well, as soon as I say that, they make me revise my words in the fact they come into Casio Triangle and swap the places around, and will completely understandable given the fact that Alex Peregrina is battling for the championship win come the end of the season next week. Meanwhile, Jimenez is battling for a top 5 finish in the season as they make the way down the start for this straight. But as they head up towards turn number 1, on the charge, Luke Andrews still with them. P4 still the leader, and Andrews showing no signs of abating in his pace control here as he stays with his rivals, making their way through turns 1 and 2 once more. But as they head up towards turns 3 and 4, Heckelgestad at the back of this long line of cars, and Haroldas Jotautas a further 8 tenths behind. And the over-the-limit racing driver has not really gained in this race so far. He's not really making any progress, and I wonder whether the Lithuanian right now is really trying to save the car for as long as possible. We're only 10 minutes in, effectively 11 minutes now. We've still got plenty of time to go, and I think for the 45 it may be about waiting for those final 5 minutes where it all unfolds and everybody else falls off the cliff. But can he afford to wait that long given the fact that time has continued to trickle away? And as it does so, it is going to be a concern for him as he makes his way down towards turn number 9 there, go through deck the 2. But as they power the way now and up towards turn number 11, long line formation here between all the drivers for now. And as they head into the braking zone, Walker there goes a little bit deep. Heckelgestad takes a sneak peek up the inside. It's getting a very different tuck here. Everybody testing one another's width in terms of how much road usage they're making through the hairpin. But Walker stays in P6, P5 in gold class for now as they make the way on down and up towards smooth curve at turns 13A and 13B. But we do have 2 retirements in this race, Joe Newman and Chris Cole. We also Sean Doe and Craig Tiddleston into the pit lane. But meanwhile, further down the order, Wayne Bassett has just found his way past Alistair Hatcher. But it's a battle there for P19 overall, where it's P10 in the silver class. So we continue to focus on the gold battle right now. But the gold leaders here all playing that game of mental chess here in terms of not wanting to make the moves. They're thinking minutes ahead, they're thinking laps ahead and quarters ahead in terms of where they want to try and get at one another and doing all the little observations. We see Cameron Willisey briefly having a dropout connection, and hope that's not a sign of things to come. But meanwhile, we've had a car go straight on, and that is Cameron Willisey. It's a lock up at the braking, and as he rejoins there using the full rejoin line as it's meant to be, and he rejoins in P9. And the Willisey Racing driver there with an error, and we have seen him at a couple of circuits this season have those late lockups that have cost him dear, and this is another one that has caught him out, and now dropping down to P9, P8 in the gold class, where he's going to have a bit of pressure build from behind if Emil Koopmans continues his way. Koopmans has found his way past Jack Ward, and Ward struggling with top end speed due to the damage he picked up in the opening laps of this race. That's Sean Cranny Swash on the right of him going into turn 1, and will the red and white machine is going to go for broke around the outside, but will it get it done? It's going to be side by side all the way way through. It's close, and Cranley Swash not quite able to get it done as they make the way up towards the S's. Now as we jump on board here with Cranley Swash, the Canadian trying to find every little part through, flying the national colours on the car, and as he comes through turns 5 into 6, well, he's just got to be smart with the positioning here. He surely will recognise now that Wood is struggling for top end speed, and if he can stay this close, making their way out of corners such as smooth curve, then he'll get it done naturally. But getting too close on the run into a corner, he'll lose out like he has in the run to Degner 1 here, and that gap will open up as they come through the Degners and in towards the braking zone of Degner 2. Well, now it's all going to be on the number 17 drive to try and catch up again, and I think he will do so here, albeit he's got Aaron Tressler behind, and he won't want to overextend his position on circuit, as otherwise Tressler may pick up the pieces, as right now Sean Cranley Swash battling for his first podium of the season. But as they come out to turn 11 and up towards Spoon they go, we say hello there to Kevin W. Berg in the YouTube chat, who says, damn, this race is good. Indeed, brilliant racing from all of our drivers here, and long may it continue. 16 minutes still the clock plus the final lap, as Karen Willisey has had an instant. In fact, he's had to be towed to the pits. So Karen Willisey has now lost out. That's going to promote everybody up overall position for the best part. Well, for our silver drivers, it's an opportunity to be chasing after top 10 finishes here, which they'll want most definitely. But Sean Cranley Swash not able to find a way to make headway versus what is their Jack Ward for now, as they make the way towards 130 yards. But as they head into the left-hander, gap coming down at an astronomical rate of knots. And all Cranley Swash has got to do is nail the run through the Casio Triangle chicane, and then he should have this charge in towards turn 1. But I think Ward will know it's coming, and he'll position the car as close as possible to the pit wall immediately. Well, as they come out, Ward in the end continue to struggle. A little bit of a wobble there on corner exit, and Cranley Swash having to react to it, and therefore losing quite a bit of speed. Aaron Tressler now 2 tenths behind. You see Ward has gone to the left, and as he does, Cranley Swash stays on the right. Tressler stays in behind Cranley Swash, trying to capitalise, but as Ward rejoins, Tressler looks on the inside. Cranley Swash will see him coming, but in the end, Tressler has to back out. There was no way through with the way the road gradually tapers, and as they make the way out to turns 1 and 2, Aaron Tressler now making it very clear to Cranley Swash, if you don't get a move on, I will. But meanwhile, they make the way through the S's. We look back to Ryan Walker, has fallen off of the back of Luke Andrews in P5, and as they make the way towards the Degners now, well, Heckel Gustad and Haroldas Jotautas are right on him, and Jotautas is now starting to push as they make the way through Degner 2, and meanwhile Luke Andrews has disappeared, and surely that's not going to be a retirement due to a disconnection for Andrews, because if so, and that is going to blow the Silver Championship wide open in this race. But Ryan Walker defending hard here as he comes to the hairpin. Look at Jotautas. He looks up the inside, but it's a little bit of oversteer on corner exit when he tries to get the power down to out-drag Gustad out the corner, and he just can't get it done. But we can confirm, I think, that Andrews has had to retire due to connectivity issues, and with that, it means now it will be Roxanne Marshall who is leading in the silver class, and will Marshall, if she can bring home the 25 points in class, and that will mean the championship goes down to the little wire at Manly Court in a week's time, which is great for us as viewers. But for Luke Andrews right now in FR20 Sim Racing Purple, it's not the way they want it to go, and Jack Ward, I think, has had a similar situation occur where disconnects are plenty here, and well, we don't want it to go that way, but of course that happens in racing. It's the equivalent of an engine blowing up or a car to be retired due to a mechanical fault. But Gustad all over the back of Walker, and he can't find a way through on the run in towards Casio Triangle. They have to stay as is, but as they make the way on through and down towards what is turn 1, and once again, Gustad's going to be close this time as we jump on board with the Ignition Motorsport machine and the 37 driver here from Norway. Well, we do love to see his candor in banding with other drivers. Walker is close. He's getting closer and closer, but not close enough to consider the run into the opening 2 quarters for a move. But Walker goes a little bit deep. It's very close between the two of them here, and there's a small bit of contact between the two. It's a little bit of a rub. I wouldn't call it contact, but Walker loses and heck on Gustad. Now that is bold. I would never imagine he would have tried to force out the inside into turn 2 of Walker making even the tiniest of mistakes, but Gustad saw the mistake was there, and he said, right, it's all for the taking. And now with Walker losing that P4, and it goes the way of Gustad, Jotautas will be looking at this and thinking, okay, well, if Gustad can get through, I can do it too. But Walker will not be caught shy twice with regards to that potential move into turns 1 and 2. And as they make the way through the Degners, the over-limit racing driver right now, where he finds himself not where he wants to be in this race, in terms of he wants to be up there inside the top 3 with Philipp Hammer and Alex Peregrina, P1, P2. Remember, of course, Jotautas is the 3rd challenger in that championship campaign. And as they make the way in towards turn number 11, well, things will stay as they are between the trio, with Giles Phillips just behind in P7. but looking from them to Aaron Tressler versus Steve Kershaw and Glenn Humberstone. Well, this trio have been together for some time as they make their way through the Degners and up towards the hairpin very shortly, but as they power the way on out and in towards turn number 11, nothing between them all, albeit Kershaw right now, the man who is on a mission to finish P4 in the silver class here today, trying to keep Aaron Tressler at bay, but as they come through the left-hander and up towards what is their turn number 12 they roll, we'd just like to remind you, ladies and gentlemen, that if you have been enjoying the racing action today, and you do want to cast your vote for driver of the day, then we do have a poll that is about to be open, and in fact it is open now, and you can vote for your driver of the day using the link that has been provided in the YouTube chat. As Aaron Tressler, as I look back to my screen, goes off the road, and oh goodness me, the Tressler Motorsport driver there, just as we were about to talk about driver of the day. Well, that will not be a moment for him. That will make him feel as though he's been driver of the day, as the 47 driver rejoins, but it's all gone wrong, and Glenn Humberstone and Steve Kershaw come on through, but the link is available there in the YouTube chat if you do want to vote for your driver of the day, and voting ends as of midnight tonight, so that's 23:59 British summertime or UTC +1 this Saturday evening. But as Aaron Tressler brings it back together, we're now P6 in the silver class, and well, I think with some of the damage on the car, could we see him have to make a visit to the pit lane in order to get things repaired and back to normal, where it is a struggle, and I think Tressler here with a car that just does not want to stay stable. But meanwhile, Glenn Humberstone versus Kershaw as they make the way in towards turn number 1. This is the battle for P4 in the silver class, P12 overall. The UKSimRacing team purple driver on the inside, Kershaw there, not able to hold it round the outside, and Glenn Humberstone finds another position. And keeping in mind, the UKSimRacing team purple driver has come a long way up the order since the start of this race, albeit he's benefited from some retirements as well, but the key point being is he hasn't given up, and well, that is shown in the fact he is picking up places by the dozen. But meanwhile, as he makes his way through what is turn number 6 and up towards 7 shortly, we look from him to Heckle Gestad, and Gestad right now, he was trying to make some progress away. We're hearing on our ear, he had a slight run wide at Degner 2, and as he makes his way up towards turn number 13 with 10 minutes to go, the Indian Motorsports driver not breaking clear of Ryan Walker, and if anything, I think Walker's trying to come back at him. As they come through Spoon Curve, and very shortly we'll be making headway down the back straight. You can see Gestad there using all the width for the exit of 13A, the first part of Spoon, and doing the same at 13B. But as he comes on down now, I think those tyres may have seen better days, and Ryan Walker in return staying with him and keeping him honest. But as they power their way on down in towards 130R, well, it is a top 3 that have broken off into the distance, albeit Ricardo Jimenez is lapping more gradually compared to Gestad in terms of lap times. In fact, the pace is falling away from Jimenez to a degree, so could we see a battle for P3 go onto our screens towards the very end of the race? It's a high possibility. Race leaders are Hammer and Peregrina 203.4s, Ricardo Jimenez at 204.3, Gestad at 203.9, so it's another 4/10 game for Gestad versus Jimenez. I think a battle is on for P3 in the final 5 minutes of this race, given that gap is 1.3 seconds and it is closing. But as they make the way on through turns 1 and 2, the top 7 drivers all being gold class drivers here, and all staying in the battle with one another. But looking at from there to your race leader, the league gold driver of Philipp Hammer, the Team Germany driver here, having started on the front row, launched off the line, absolutely nailed it off the launch, and since then he's never looked back, and it's a 7.5 second gap almost to Alex Peregrina, and the two of them are exchanging lap times. But the key point is that as Peregrina makes his way through turn number 7 down towards Degner 1 himself, that I don't think Peregrina is going to catch up unless Hammer makes a massive mistake at this point. It's going to come down to fortune being on Peregrina's side rather than him being able to make a move here. And you can see the battle for P3 further behind as it comes onto our screen here, emerging from Degner 2. We're in Emil Coombs had to be towed to the pits due to an instance. We now do have a grand total of what is 6 retirements so far out of 25 starters, and what's a high rate of attrition here in Japan. But as they make the way out to turn 11 and onwards towards 13, the top 7 gold class drivers here all staying in it to win it, and they're not putting a foot wrong so far. There's been a couple of wobbles, but the interesting thing is nobody right now succumbing to the pressure of the battle at the very top end of the field. As they make the way through at Spoon Curve, I mean, we looked at Alistair Hatcher, who's just had a brief venture off the road at his turn number 7 on the exit. He's rejoining P15, P8 in the silver class, and the UKSimRacing team sign driver, of course, only joined midway through race number 1. They were able to get the car repaired and get it out on circuit, with a 964 driver now pushing on here and looking to pick up some key points in P8 in the silver class, in the fact a lot of silver drivers ahead. But right now he'll just be pleased in the fact he's out there and the car's still running, and well, it's not in his mind going to be a car that's going to retire from this race anytime soon, or at least the team will have the fingers crossed that there's no technical gremlins that potentially spring any surprises. But meanwhile, looking a bit further back to other silver class drivers, Sean Dobie getting a better run now at turn 7, with Craig Tillotson struggling for grip, it would seem. And as they make their way towards the Degners, could we see Dobie try and make a move as they come up towards the hairpin? He'll get the better run through Degner 1. Degner 2, meanwhile, backs it off there, but Tillotson goes quite deep, but he does carry all the speed to Tillotson, so I think for Dobie, he won't be able to make a move. What he will do is be able to start building some pressure. They break the way through turn number 11. And Tillotson again going overly deep, and I think Tillotson got a problem with the car as he completely goes deep. Sean Dobie takes the place off of him. Well, in the end, it's just come naturally to the Scotsman as he makes way through turn number 12. And Craig Tillotson now down to P10 in the silver class, P18 overall, and Dobie getting one more place in his crusade. But as I head up towards 13, meanwhile we look from them back up to what is Haroldas Jotautas, who is now starting to fall a little bit close to Giles Phillips behind. Or we could say that Phillips really is raising the bar in terms of his pace and pushing on as they make the way through Degner 2 and up towards what is the hairpin. Heading in towards the braking zone. Of course, it's one thing to catch, it's another thing to pass, and well, the challenge here will be where can Phillips go for the move. We do know that Giles Phillips, a very fast driver in the late stages of these feature races. He's one of the very best at tyre saving, and we saw that at Le Mans in particular in round number 9. We were just able to preserve the tyres so much better compared to everybody else, and the pace he was able to extract in the closing stages of the special feature race. But as he makes way around here in the Suzuka feature, well, the challenge will be for him now. Can he find a way to just get a little bit closer and try and put the pressure on? As we're hearing that Alexander Wilfert has had a retirement from P16. So if so, that means we now have 7 retirees on this race. And well, it does almost lead to a quarter of the field having to retire. In fact, it's over a quarter of the field as they make the way in towards 130R. And with 5.5 minutes left on the clock, for our race leader who goes past by commentary, but Philipp Hammer who goes on to lap 13, as Giles Phillips there takes the first look at a potential move. It does mean now that we are running with only what is 3 more laps to go. But as we ride on board here with the Phillips GP driver, let's listen in. And empowering his way down towards turn number 1 and putting the wiper on there to try and clear the windshield of any dirt that's been picked up on it. Well, this battle is gradually coming together. And there is another battle up the road which is also starting to take precedent. And in fact, as we go from the onboard, it's Ricardo Jimenez who is trying to hold on to P3. He's defending versus Heckel Gestad, but Gestad here again all over the rear of Jimenez. And notice how the Spaniard having to drive off race line to go defensive. It means that his lines are compromised as he wobbles off the curve there at turn number 5. Well, the number 41 driver definitely unsettled, and this is causing Gestad and Walker to continue together behind. Now, could we see Walker try and capitalise on this? That will be his goal, of course. He'll want to try and find his way into that fight, but as they make the way on through and down towards what is their turn number 8 through the Degners, well, things do seem static for now, but I think it's the natural way of the Degners as we are hearing that Luke Andrews is back out on circuit in P17, so despite the connectivity issues earlier, he has rejoined and he is still racing and on the lead lap. But as our drivers make the way on around here, Ricardo Jimenez coming through turn number 11, he has got a long line of cars following him. And as he makes his way out to turn number 12 and up towards 13, well, the problem will now be for Jimenez is he's not got long left in this race, but what he's got left is 2 more laps after this one, and that is going to feel like an eternity. With the lap being as long as it is here in Japan, it does mean that he is going to be pressured all the way through, and it does look as though its direction changes. We do get a faceful there on the front bumper of Heckel Gestad's car. Now as they make the way on down the back straight, Gestad's so close he can reach out and touch the rear wing of Jimenez's car. Will he switch from one side to the other? He switches the inside. It's going to be too wide in the one towards 130R. It's the Indian Motorsport machine on the inside, Avatar race on the outside. It's contact between the two of them as Jimenez tries to turn him in, but Gestad puts himself firmly there. And well, I think that Jimenez turning in when there was no place to turn in, and with that Ryan Walker moves up to P4 as well, and Jimenez now drops down to P5. Haroldas Jotautas and Giles Phillips are also on the back of this, so Jimenez loses 2 places, 1 little bit of contact to 130R, and well, thankfully it was nothing more dramatic than a small tap between them, but it could have been far darker. And as they make their way down towards turn number 1, 2 laps to go here with the time remaining, and the battle is on for the final podium spot, albeit I think Heckel Gestad, if he can find a bit of rhythm He may just break away with this, with Ryan Walker not quite able to match his pace over the race sessions today, but Walker will still be very happy with a P3 in race 1, and if he can hold on to a P4 in race 2, I think the satellite racing crew will be absolutely ecstatic. And we can see here Jimenez all over the back of Walker as they come on through turns 5 and 6. I think Walker's tyres have done enough, and they're not really giving him the grip he wants anymore, and Jimenez is trying to come on back, but as they make their way out to turn 7 and down towards 8 they go. We jump on board with the Spaniard here, still fighting at the steering wheel. We all feel as though he's been knocked about for the first move, but for Walker, he was just a passenger who found a way up the inside, and Jimenez wants to prove that passengers are permitted to make moves on him as they make their way out towards turn number 11 here. Into the hairpin they go. Jimenez looking to the outside, understeers a little bit, just costs him the speed in order to be able to try and look for the move here as they come on through the corner, but as they get back on the throttle, more's happening further back as well. Wayne Basson getting ahead of Steve Kershaw for P5 in the silver class. We stay with this gold battle for now as they make their way out towards Smooth Curve, and Kershaw falling back even further. I believe Kershaw's had an instant that's seen him lose a couple of places and pick up some damage on the car from what I'm hearing in my ear, but Jimenez here not able to find the move of Walker through Spoon, but as they power on out, meanwhile Giles Phillips just behind, and Phillips still well there in the hunt as they make the way on through and up towards 130 up. It does seem as though the battles in the silver class are subsiding, and it's moments for individual drivers that are calling place changes, whereas we do have 4 gold drivers here all battling for the right to be P4 through to P7, and it is going to come down to the fine margins as the race leader Philipp Hammer goes on to the final lap of race here at Suzuka. And meanwhile, a bit further back, in fact 16.5 seconds back, Ryan Walker tries to hold it to P4 with Ricardo Jimenez pressuring him, and Haroldas Jotautas also trying to hold it to P6 versus Giles Phillips. But as they head across the timeline and on to what is the 15th and final tour of the circuit, meanwhile we look back to the silver class, and this is Steve Kershaw, who right now trying to chase down Aston Hatcher in the battle for P7 in the silver class. And Kershaw with some damage to the car. We can't quite see what damage there is on the machine, but the rear letting go there, and well, for Kershaw, the night and day racing driver, he'll be hoping it's a day not to remember after that, given the fact the car just seems to be wobbling all over the place. And as he makes his way in towards turn number 14, heading up towards 130R, I think it may be for Kershaw just consolidated a P8 finish, because Luke Andrews is 34 seconds down the road, closing fast, but the key thing is he's not going to close up that time if Kershaw just keeps it on the black stuff for the remainder of the racing. But as they make the way on around and through Casio Triangle, meanwhile we do look from Kershaw to Herkogestad. Well, he's P3 and he's comfortably broken away from this man, Ryan Walker, who stays P4 for now as they head out of Degna 2. And Walker here with a long traffic jam of cars following him up the road towards turn number 11, and into the hairpin they go through the left-hander and out. But as the 95 driver here has a little bit of an oversteer moment there, the car just not settling down, and this could be Jimenez's opportunity. He's going to be made to go around the outside of Spoon, but Walker's going to need to consolidate all the speed he can here into Spoon Curve, and Jimenez will not back out of this. They will go too wide in, but who's going to come out? In fact, Jimenez does back out, and it's a bit of a mistake of Jimenez. There was their contact with Jotautas as they both go off the road together, and what there was, it didn't look so there was contact, so it was slightly off camera, perhaps netcode contact there, but the point being that right now Ryan Walker has been given freedom to run P4, but meanwhile making his way out the final corner, Philipp Hammer had a difficult race number 1, but his championship lead is well and truly alive as he comes to line. Here's your winner in the round 13 feature at Suzuka by what will be 12 seconds in the end over Alex Peregrina, who will come on home very shortly to finish P2, and with this P2 his championship hopes will still be there, but it will be a difficult battle in the season finale for him to become champion. Herkogestad finishes P3 for Eden Motorsports in a great drive for the 37 driver. Ryan Walker holds on to P4 on the end to add to his podium in the first race of the day. Giles Phillips P5 for Phillips GP, and it'll be Ricardo Jimenez who finishes just under Haroldas Jotautas P6, with it then Roxanne Marshall coming on through to take the silver class win, and the 24-hour Punty People driver, knowing that the damage done to Luke Andrews' championship campaign will mean that they're on a level footing going into the season finale. Sean Cranley brings on home his best performance of the season, P2 in the silver class, P9 overall for HW Racing, and then very shortly it will be Steve Hobbs who comes through the rear of the picture to take what for him will be P10 and the final spot on the silver podium. For FR20 Sim Racing, ahead of Glenn Humberstone, best of the rest there, P11 and P4 in the silver class. And then we do have a bit of time before it is going to be Wayne Basson, who comes across the line, P12. There he is for FR20 Sim Racing at P5 in the silver class, ahead of Aaron Trester, who finishes P13 for Trester Motorsport, ahead of Alistair Hatcher. And then we have Steve Kershaw, who comes to the line at P15 there in a difficult way to end the day with some damage picked up. And in fact, I think it's on the front right of the suspension from the driver's perspective, front left from our camera's perspective. You can see the car's pitched up there slightly, and then it will be Luke Andrews who shortly comes on through to what will be a 16th place finish and P9 in the silver class. And it was an early disconnect due to technical issues, but they were able to get the car back out on circuit. But for the FR20 Sim Racing Purple team, they know that the win in this feature race could have put the championship well and truly clear, but it wasn't to be, and that means now Andrews has to nail it in the season finale with Sean Doby P17 there for Clicks Racing, completing the silver top 10. And then it will be Craig Tillotson who will be our last finisher, who finishes P18 as he comes to the line for FR20 Sim Racing, within a grand total of 7 retirements. Alexander Wilfer, Emil Koopmans, Jack Ward, Cameron Willesee, Lewis Willesee, Joe Newman and Chris Cole. Goodness me, quite a statistic there. It's the most retirements we've had in a single race all season. Suzuka has caught many a driver out, but as Ryan Walker makes his way to the pit lane, we just want to remind you, don't forget to vote for your driver of the day. Votes close at midnight tonight, British Summer Time or UTC at +1. And whether it be Ryan Walker with his maiden podium and a top 4 to follow it through, or another driver who has caught your eye, do make sure to let us know who your driver of the day is. And of course, last time out, the driver of the day was none other than what was the silver class driver of Lewis Willesee, with 50% of the vote after his superb performance and taking the win in the feature race at Silverstone. But who has caught your eye? That's the big question we ask you. But right now, let's bring onto your screen the results from the feature race. Well, after another 30 minutes of racing action here at Suzuka, and what an absolutely brilliant day of racing we have had. But we have to bring it to a close, of course. Philipp Hammer bringing on home the win there in the gold class of Team Germany, 12 seconds clear of Alex Peregrina, who finished P2 for Avatar Racing. It was always going to be a good opportunity for Philipp Hammer starting on the front row, that if he could get the launch off the line, he'd be able to run away with proceedings. And by the time Peregrina was able to cut his way through to P2, the Avatar Racing driver will picking up the P2, so it means he is in the championship hunt, but Philipp Hammer will definitely have the advantage going into the season finale. Heckel Gestad, another podium for the Ignium Motorsports driver, after what was a brilliant performance in race number 1 to pick up where everybody else dropped off, and making it a double podium today, the 37, with an advantage of what was 3 seconds to Ryan Walker for Satellite Racing, and Walker in the end bringing on home that 4th place, not able to make it a double podium, but still once again showing that defensive resilience that has defined Walker's championship campaign from start to finish. Whenever he's been up against it, he has dug in incredibly deep, and he has been rewarded for it here today in Japan. Giles Phillips P5 for Phillips GP, a further what was at 7/10 off in the end, and picking up where Haroldas Jotautas and Ricardo Jimenez left off after their contact. Jimenez finishing P6 for Avatar Racing, and Jotautas at P7 there for Over Limit Racing. And then Roxanne Marshall, your silver winner for 24-hour Punty People. And we'll close the gap to Luke Andrews going into the season finale, ahead of runner-up in the silver class, P9 overall, Sean Cranley Swash, the HW Racing driver. Well, he's picked up the podium and his best result of the season with that P2 in class and P9 overall. Steve Hobbs rounds off the silver podium in a P10 overall for FR20 Sim Racing, also one of his best performances of the season, no question about it. And then 3 seconds behind him, Glenn Humberstone for ATEC Racing Team Purple, best of rest P11. Wayne Basson P12 ahead of Aaron Tresler for Tresler Motorsport, with Alistair Hatcher and Steve Kershaw completing your top 15. And Kershaw there for night and day race, and have a difficult end to the race with some damage being picked up and caused him to lose out the majority of his pace, and therefore having to settle for dropping down the order and taking the P15. Luke Andrews, after that early disconnect due to technical issues, rejoining the FR20 Sim Racing Purple driver, finishing P16 on his rejoin, and therefore it will mean that his championship advantage has been eroded to a degree going into the season finale. And then Sean at Dowie P17 ahead of Craig Tillotson. And as we continue our way through the finishing positions, Alexander Wilfer, the first of our many retirees, with only 18 finishers out of 25 starters. Alexander Wilfer finishing 4 laps down for Team Germany, and therefore will be classified as a finisher of this race. The same for P20 driver Emil Koopmans, 5 laps in the end, his retirement. And then at P21, Jack Ward, 8 laps from at the end, and therefore given the fact that 15 laps returned, it's not over 50% of the race distance, we will see Jack Ward be the first of a number of drivers to be classified as did not finish. The same for Cameron Willesee, who retired 9 laps in the end, along with Lewis Willesee, and and then Joe Newman and Chris Cole both retiring after the first lap. They'll be classified as non-finishers as well, P24, P25. But close racing from start to finish today, ladies and gentlemen, and what brilliant racing action we've seen in Japan. But with that, of course, we've seen all the racing action out of the circuit, or as best as we could cover it. But the question is, of course, what did our drivers have to say about racing at the Suzuka circuit? We'll be back in approximately 10 to 15 minutes time for post-round interviews. Don't go anywhere, you won't want to miss them. But before we do just briefly step away, we'd just like to remind you now, if you have been enjoying the racing and ever wondered how you can support UKSimRacing, did you know there's a quick way to do so via our affiliates? For UKSimRacing is affiliated with multiple sim racing and real-world motorsport companies, including Swilling Meta Sim Racing Coaching and Demon Tweaks. And if you do head to our website, that's uksimracing.co.uk today. The website will appear on screen very shortly, and there it is. There is currently a link to our Discord in the top right corner of your screen, which if you click on that, you'll be able to join our Discord. Now, why would you want to do that? Well, firstly, if you ever want to compete in an official UK Sim Racing event, you need to be part of our Discord. That's a mandatory role. But also on top of that, some of our affiliates provide discount codes on our Discord, which are only available there. And well, if you use those codes to make a purchase, you as the consumer get a discount on your purchase, which is a win for you. We at UK Sim Racing get a kickback from your purchase, which is a win for us. And because we're a non-profit organisation, it's a win for the community because all the money we make from affiliate purchases will be invested back into the community to fund future series, including future editions of the Porsche Cup, the GT3 League, and other series we've got planned going on through 2023 as we go from strength to strength here at UK Sim Racing. So do remember, a little purchase could go a long way in supporting UK Sim Racing. And with that message, we'll be back in approximately 10 to 15 minutes time for those post-round interviews. We'll see you shortly. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, we are back. Unfortunately, we haven't got any of our drives available for post-round interview. Understandably so, given this is a post-round broadcast, it means that they're not necessarily available a couple of days after the event, but still, congratulations to all of our drives for their fantastic performances today. And, well, we wouldn't normally say that a particular pair of rounds have been the best of the season, because with the season from the outset being just so good in the quality of the racing, and I think it's been brought to light today at Suzuka just how top tier the racing has been, with battles of plenty up and down the field at a circuit that's not shy in terms of racing drama, but they've really brought to life the Suzuka circuit. I'm going to tell you one thing, it has set us up for a championship finale in a week's time at Magny-Cours, where we have all three championships still wide open, and indeed we will be crowning three champions there, and it has been perhaps one of the best seasons of racing we have seen in some time, albeit that's not to besmirch the previous 5 seasons, but it just goes to show things are going from strength to strength in season 6. But without further ado, it is now time for us to wrap up. Thank you very much for watching. And if you have enjoyed today's show and you want to know more about the UK sim racing community in terms of the series we run, and what we do in the virtual world of motorsport, alternatively what we do in the real world of motorsport, well, you can, of course, head to our website, which you saw earlier on in today's broadcast, and that may be found at UKSimRacing.co.uk. And there you have all the details about our upcoming leagues, our ongoing leagues, how you may join them, how you may sign up and get on the grid, and also about our affiliates. Alternatively, if you don't necessarily want to go to our website, but you want to follow us on social media, then our recommendation would be to follow us on our official Twitter, which is at twitter.com/UKSimRacing_. We make posts about our upcoming series, but also about the latest escapades and episodes of our official esports teams as they take to the virtual racing circuit. And also, we'd like to take this point to give a big thank you to our affiliates, of which we have 5. Firstly, we have Suelio Ameda Sim Racing Coaching, and well, Suelio Ameda is the creator of the Motor Racing Checklist, and his coaching can help you take your sim racing driving to the next level. Whether you're looking to gain a 10th, improve your approach to the racing line, or develop your consistency, Suelio Ameda has a coaching course to meet your needs. Plus, with Suelio being a multi-time champion of official iRacing series, including the 2021 PSCC, you know you're receiving coaching from the very best in the industry. We also have Race Anywhere, the provider of curated sim racing equipment aimed to only stock products that represent excellent value for the sim racing community. Demon Tweaks, the provider of the most complete and innovative motorsport product range available worldwide, so no matter what your level of discipline, Demon Tweaks could help drive you to realise your motorsport ambitions on the simulator or in the real world of motorsport. We also have SimLab, our latest affiliate, the leading manufacturer of high-quality sim racing-related hardware, and as a proud partner of Mercedes-AMG Petronas Esports, SimLab aims to enhance virtual racing experiences with uncompromising solutions that push the boundaries of esports. With in-house engineering and production facilities which combine Dutch design and high-end craftsmanship, SimLab is the go-to brand for quality sim racing rigs. And lastly, Amazon, the company trying to be the Earth's most customer-centric company, the Earth's best employer, and the Earth's safest place to work through the provision of concepts pioneered by Amazon, including but not limited to one-click shopping, Amazon Prime, and Amazon Fire TV. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, we now head to the season finale and save the date. Rounds 14 and 15 will be taking place and brought to you live on Thursday, the 25th of May, 2023. We have seen 13 rounds of racing thus far. We have the Gold Drivers' Championship wide open between Philipp Hammer, Haroldas Jotautas, and Alex Peregrina, with Cameron Willesee having an outside shot as well. In the silver class, the battle rages on between Luke Andrews, Roxanne Marshall, and the two of them will be going toe-to-toe come the season finale, with, of course, is Lewis Willesee also having an outside opportunity, and David Biglight could also have something to say about being in the mix. And in the team's championship, it's Avatar Racing versus Team Germany. It's going to go down to the wire, and it's all going to be settled as the curtain comes down in the French country. But until then, we've been UK Sim Racing. I've been your host and commentator, Paul TX141 Walsh, and until next time, remember to stay safe, stay well, stay smiling, but most importantly, remember to stay on track. Good night.